In the bustling heart of a city that never sleeps, Henry Miller thrived as a successful entrepreneur. His days were filled with high-stakes meetings, lavish dinners, and the relentless pursuit of success. With a sharp suit hugging his well-defined frame and a confident stride that commanded attention, Henry epitomized the image of a man who had conquered the corporate world. However, behind the facade of success, a darker narrative simmered. Henry was a man divided, caught between his public persona and private dissatisfaction, primarily due to his tumultuous marriage to Meghan. Meghan, Henry's wife, was the polar opposite of his ambitious, glamorous image. While she stood firmly beside him during the grueling ascent of his career, her modesty often made her seem out of place in the lavish lifestyle that Henry had grown accustomed to. With soft, nurturing eyes and a heart that radiated kindness, she had dedicated herself to supporting Henry's dreams. Yet, in his eyes, her unassuming nature became a source of embarrassment. Henry felt that Meghan, with her simple taste and gentle demeanor, did not match the elite persona he aimed to project in the business world. It wasn't that Henry hated Meghan, rather, he felt trapped by the weight of her devotion and the stark contrast she posed to the glamorous image he sought to portray. The love and loyalty she offered felt, in his distorted perception, more like an anchor pulling him down than a support system lifting him higher. Thus, he found himself searching for validation and excitement outside the confines of his marriage, eventually leading him to Phoebe. Phoebe entered Henry's life like a breath of fresh air. She was vibrant, confident, and possessed a magnetic charm that captivated everyone around her. Their affair was not just a fleeting fling. For Henry, Phoebe embodied the ideal partner he believed he deserved. With her, he felt invigorated, alive in a way that his marriage had long ceased to make him feel. As their relationship blossomed, he began to introduce her to his world, taking her to business events and meetings, showcasing her as the perfect accessory to his ambitious persona. With each outing, Henry reveled in the attention they garnered. Phoebe's glamorous presence was a stark contrast to Meghan's humble nature, and with her by his side, he felt invincible. However, beneath the thrill of his double life, the shadows of deceit began to creep in. Henry orchestrated elaborate lies, carefully crafting a narrative that would keep Meghan in the dark while he continued to chase the excitement he craved. Yet, unbeknownst to him, Meghan was not as oblivious as he believed. She had noticed the subtle changes in Henry's behavior, the late nights, the unexplained absences, the hushed phone calls that seemed to happen whenever she was out of earshot. Meghan's heart ached with a mixture of confusion and concern. She loved Henry deeply but began to sense a growing distance between them. The more she observed, the more her intuition whispered to her that something was amiss. As the day of a crucial business meeting approached, Henry's plan solidified. He was to present to a group of foreign investors, and in his mind, Phoebe's presence would elevate his status and impress those who held the keys to lucrative contracts. With meticulous precision, he crafted lies about a business trip, convinced that he could easily deceive Meghan into believing everything was as it should be. Meghan, for her part, had been quietly gathering her thoughts, her heart heavy with the knowledge that their relationship had shifted into dangerous territory. While she hoped to trust Henry, the nagging feeling of betrayal gnawed at her, leading her to suspect that the man she loved had begun to lead a life she was not a part of. The day of the trip finally arrived. As Henry prepared to leave, a sense of excitement mixed with anxiety filled the air. He could hardly contain his confidence. After all, with Phoebe at his side, he was ready to conquer the corporate world once more. But little did he know that the greatest challenge of all lay just ahead. As they walked into the meeting room, Henry introduced Phoebe as his wife, hoping to dazzle the investors with the vision of a successful, dynamic couple. The room was filled with the air of anticipation, but Henry was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. What he viewed as a simple act of deception would soon unravel in ways he could never have predicted, leading to a revelation that would alter the course of his life forever. As the sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the meeting room, casting a warm glow on the polished conference table, Henry felt a rush of confidence. He glanced at Phoebe, who stood beside him, her vibrant smile and stylish attire effortlessly drawing the attention of everyone in the room. For a moment, all his insecurities faded away, and he envisioned a future where he was not just a businessman but a man with a perfect partner by his side. Yet, beneath this polished exterior, the tension simmered, unnoticed by Henry but palpable to others. Henry's mind drifted back to the early days of his relationship with Meghan. They had met in college, where her quiet strength had captivated him from the very start. Meghan was intelligent and kind-hearted, traits that had initially drawn him in. He remembered their late-night study sessions, their laughter echoing through the campus halls, and the dreams they shared of building a life together. They had faced challenges, but through it all, Meghan had been unwavering in her support of Henry's ambitions. As Henry climbed the corporate ladder, Meghan had been his rock. She celebrated every small victory with him, often downplaying her own aspirations to ensure he shone brighter. But as Henry's career advanced, the very traits that had made her a supportive partner began to feel like chains binding him to a life he no longer wanted. The disparity between his growing ambition and Meghan's humble demeanor became more pronounced. Henry found himself yearning for the admiration and validation that came with status, leading him to seek companionship in the form of Phoebe. Phoebe was everything Henry thought he wanted, a confident woman who matched his aspirations with her own fierce ambition. Their affair had begun innocently enough, a few stolen moments that quickly escalated into passionate encounters. With her by his side, he felt seen, desired, and above all, important. In his mind, Phoebe represented the life he believed he deserved, one filled with glamour and excitement, unlike the comfortable but unremarkable life he shared with Meghan. Meghan, for her part, was aware of the shifts in their relationship. While she didn't want to confront Henry without evidence, her intuition was a powerful force guiding her through the fog of confusion. She noticed how his late nights had become more frequent, the way he always seemed to have a reason for his absences. A gnawing suspicion began to settle in her heart, making her feel more isolated with each passing day. While Henry was busy crafting his narrative, Meghan had begun her own silent investigation. With her keen observational skills, she noticed little things, a text message that went unanswered, an unfamiliar perfume lingering in the air when he returned home, and the sudden changes in his schedule. Each detail added to her growing fear, but also to her resolve. She would not allow herself to be a victim in this scenario, she was determined to uncover the truth. On the day of the critical meeting, as Henry basked in the glow of his deception, Meghan prepared to confront the reality of her husband's betrayal. While Henry envisioned himself as the protagonist of a story of success, Meghan was already penning her own narrative of empowerment. With the strength of a woman who had silently borne the weight of their relationship, she decided that it was time to take control of her life. As the meeting commenced, Henry stood before the investors, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He began his presentation, but as he spoke, he could feel the atmosphere shift. The investors, who had once looked at him with admiration, now seemed skeptical. Their questions became increasingly complex, delving into the intricacies of the business that Henry had meticulously crafted but had failed to fully comprehend. The facade he had built began to crack. Phoebe stood by his side, a confident smile plastered on her face, but even she could sense the tension in the room. Henry's bravado began to falter as he struggled to answer the investors' questions. He had always prided himself on being knowledgeable and quick-witted, but now he felt out of his depth. Each inquiry felt like a dagger aimed at his carefully constructed identity, revealing the hollow core of his deception. In that moment of vulnerability, he glanced at Phoebe, seeking reassurance. But all he saw was confusion reflected in her eyes. The realization that their carefully curated image was slipping away sent a wave of panic through him. The stakes were high, and failure was not an option. If he could just navigate through this meeting, he could secure the contract he so desperately needed. He took a deep breath, attempting to rally his thoughts, but the questions kept coming. Then, just as Henry thought he could regain control, one investor stood up, a man with an air of authority that instantly commanded attention. His sharp gaze fixated on Henry, and with a calm yet intimidating tone, he began to probe deeper into the company's management and future prospects. Henry's confidence wavered, he could feel the sweat forming at the back of his neck. The man's questions were not only insightful but also aimed directly at the heart of Henry's insecurities. "Henry, can you elaborate on how you plan to tackle the recent downturn in your revenue?" the investor asked, his voice steady but filled with scrutiny. Henry stammered, grasping for answers that seemed to elude him. He could see Phoebe shifting uncomfortably, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. The walls seemed to close in around him, and he felt exposed, the weight of his lies pressing down harder than ever. Each question from the investor felt like a reminder of his inadequacies, of the deception that had led him here. Just as he thought he might crumble under the pressure, a familiar voice cut through the tension in the room. "Actually, I can clarify that for you," it said, smooth and confident. Henry turned, disbelief flooding his senses as he laid eyes on Megan, who had just stepped forward. Clad in a tailored business suit, her presence commanded respect. She stood tall, a stark contrast to the vulnerable husband grappling with his failings. The room fell silent, all eyes now on her as she prepared to reveal herself. The moment felt surreal as Henry's world shifted beneath his feet. Megan, his wife, who he had taken for granted, stood confidently in front of the investors, her eyes radiating determination and clarity. The air in the room was thick with anticipation as everyone awaited her next words, and Henry's heart raced, torn between disbelief and a sense of impending doom. How had she found out? How had she managed to orchestrate this unexpected turn of events? "Ladies and gentlemen," Megan began, her voice steady and clear, "I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Megan Miller, and I'm a primary investor in Henry's company." The revelation sent a shockwave through the room, the investors exchanging glances as they processed the information. Henry's stomach dropped, realizing that his carefully crafted lies were beginning to unravel before his eyes. Megan continued, "While Henry has been busy with his affairs, I've been working quietly in the background, accumulating shares and ensuring that our family's interests were protected. I've dedicated myself to this company just as much as he has, perhaps even more, while he chased a different life." Her words were sharp, cutting through the pretense that had defined their relationship for far too long. Henry felt as if the ground had been ripped away from under him. The sheer audacity of Megan's revelation left him speechless, and he could only stand there, his mind racing. This was not how he envisioned this meeting would go, it was not how he envisioned his life unfolding. Panic bubbled within him as he realized that the control he thought he had was slipping away, and Megan was now in the driver's seat. The investors, intrigued by the unfolding drama, leaned in closer, captivated by the tension in the air. Megan's confidence ignited a spark of interest. "I've watched Henry grow and struggle, and I believed in his potential, but I also witnessed his choices that put our marriage and this company at risk," she explained, her gaze unwavering as it locked onto Henry's. "Today, I am here to ensure that our company remains strong, regardless of his personal decisions." As she spoke, Henry felt a wave of regret wash over him. The realization that he had underestimated Megan, both as a partner and as a businesswoman, crashed over him like a tidal wave. He had dismissed her contributions, believing that her modesty equated to incompetence. But here she stood, not just as his wife but as a formidable presence, ready to claim her place in the business he had thought was solely his. "Henry, you may have thought you could keep me in the dark, but you failed to recognize my capabilities. I have been watching, learning, and preparing for this moment," Megan stated, her voice resonating with authority. "This company deserves a leader who is committed and honest. It deserves someone who can navigate the complexities of this business without resorting to deception." Henry's heart raced as he struggled to regain his composure. "Megan, please, let's talk about this," he stammered, desperation creeping into his voice. He had never expected this confrontation, and now he was left grappling with the consequences of his actions. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under." But Megan cut him off. "No, Henry, you don't understand the consequences of your actions. This is not just about you anymore. Your choices have affected us both, and I refuse to be a passive participant in this charade any longer." Her words were firm, resonating in the silence of the room as she faced him, unyielding. With every word, the gravity of the situation deepened. The investors, who had initially been skeptical of Henry's leadership, now watched as the narrative shifted. They were witnessing a power struggle, a marital dispute laid bare in front of them, and they were both intrigued and uncomfortable. The tension crackled in the air as Megan's presence became an undeniable force in the room. "Let's talk about the future of this company," she continued, shifting the focus back to business. "I am prepared to implement changes that will strengthen our operations and improve transparency. I believe in this company and its potential. With the right leadership, we can thrive." Henry felt the walls closing in around him. This was not just a personal crisis, it was a professional one as well. "Megan, I'm the one who built this company. You can't just come in here and try to take control. You don't know what it takes," he protested, but his words felt hollow in the face of her conviction. "Oh, but I do know what it takes," she countered, her eyes fierce. "I've been there every step of the way. While you were off playing a different game, I was at home, learning, planning, and understanding the intricacies of our business. I may not have had the same opportunities to showcase my abilities, but that doesn't mean I lack them." The investors shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other as the confrontation continued. They were caught in the crossfire of a couple's unraveling marriage, and it was clear that Henry's credibility was crumbling. Megan had seized the moment and transformed it into a powerful assertion of her identity. In that critical moment, the atmosphere shifted entirely. No longer was this just a business meeting, it was a dramatic unveiling of personal truths. The investors, recognizing Megan's strength and poise, began to nod in agreement with her vision. They saw a potential leader who could steer the company through turbulent waters, while Henry, once the golden boy, began to fade into the background. Megan addressed the investors, her voice steady and confident. "I know you have questions, and I welcome them. I want to ensure that we move forward together, united as a company. You deserve transparency, and I am here to provide that." As she engaged with the investors, Henry stood frozen, watching the dynamic shift before his eyes. He felt as if he were watching a play unfold, with himself as the forgotten character in a story that had taken a new direction. The very foundation of his life and career was crumbling, and he was powerless to stop it. In that moment of realization, Henry understood the magnitude of his mistakes. He had underestimated Megan, taken her loyalty for granted, and now he was left grappling with the consequences. The deceptive life he had constructed was collapsing, revealing the stark truth: he had pushed away the one person who had believed in him the most. As the meeting continued, the investors began to engage with Megan, asking questions and discussing the future of the company. Henry, feeling increasingly marginalized, took a step back, the weight of his choices pressing heavily upon him. He had once envisioned a successful life defined by power and prestige, but now he was merely an onlooker in a story he had tried to control. The turning point had arrived, and Henry's reality began to crystallize. He had lost not only the trust of his wife but also the confidence of those he sought to impress. As Meghan skillfully navigated the discussion, the realization dawned on him: it was time to confront the truth, not just for himself, but for the sake of the company they had built together. The atmosphere in the meeting room had shifted dramatically, with Meghan now at the helm of the conversation, captivating the investors with her vision for the company. Henry stood on the sidelines, the weight of his failures pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. It was clear that he had lost control, not only over the meeting but over his life. The realization hit him like a tidal wave: the woman he had underestimated was not only his wife but also a key player in the future of their company. As Meghan engaged in discussions with the investors, outlining her strategic vision and answering questions with confidence, Henry felt himself fading further into the background. The boardroom, once a space where he held all the power, now felt foreign. He had thought that by bringing Phoebe into his life, he could elevate his status, but in reality, he had opened the door for Meghan to reclaim her own power. Henry struggled with a mix of emotions: shame, regret, and a growing sense of despair. He remembered the days when he had promised to share his life with Meghan, to build a future together. Instead, he had let ambition cloud his judgment, leading him to betray her trust. The gravity of his choices weighed heavily on his conscience, and he began to realize that it was not just his career on the line but his marriage and the very fabric of his life. Meghan continued to impress the investors, articulating her plans with clarity and passion. As she spoke, Henry couldn't help but feel a strange mix of admiration and sorrow. He had always known that Meghan was intelligent and capable, but he had chosen to ignore her potential. Now, she was seizing the moment, proving to everyone in the room, and to herself, that she was more than just a supportive spouse, she was a formidable leader in her own right. At that moment, one of the investors raised a hand, interrupting Meghan. "Meghan, can you elaborate on your strategy for improving the company's public image?" he asked, his interest piqued by her confidence. Meghan nodded, ready to tackle the question. "Absolutely. I believe transparency and community engagement are vital. We need to rebuild trust with our clients and stakeholders. This starts with a comprehensive rebranding initiative that highlights our commitment to quality and integrity. We can host community events, engage in social responsibility projects, and actively seek feedback from our clients to ensure we meet their needs." As she outlined her vision, Henry's heart sank. He had been so consumed with maintaining his image that he had forgotten the importance of authenticity and connection. In his pursuit of success, he had lost sight of the very values that had brought him and Meghan together in the first place. Watching her command the room, he realized that the world he had constructed was built on a foundation of lies, while Meghan was laying the groundwork for a future based on honesty and integrity. After an intense back-and-forth, the investors exchanged glances, nodding in agreement. The tides had turned, Meghan had won their trust and admiration. Henry felt invisible, the cheers and applause from the investors now ringing hollow in his ears. His mind raced as he grappled with the reality that the woman he had belittled was the one leading the charge for their company's future. When the meeting concluded, the investors stood to shake Meghan's hand, congratulating her on a job well done. Henry felt a pang of jealousy mixed with respect. As he watched her bask in the glory of her success, he realized he had pushed away the one person who had believed in him and supported him through thick and thin. The facade he had built was crumbling, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. "Meghan," he finally said, his voice shaking slightly as he approached her after the investors left the room. "Can we talk?" Meghan turned to him, her expression a mix of caution and curiosity. "What do you want to say, Henry?" "I've made my position clear," she replied, her tone firm yet composed. Henry took a deep breath, his heart racing as he gathered his thoughts. I want to apologize. I see now how wrong I was to underestimate you. I thought I could build a life based on appearances, but I was wrong. You've shown me what true leadership looks like. I want to do better, not just for myself but for us. Megan's eyes softened momentarily, but the steel in her resolve remained. You had your chance, Henry. For too long, I have played the role of the supportive wife while you sought validation elsewhere. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. You hurt me deeply. I know, he admitted, his voice breaking. I was selfish and foolish. I never meant to hurt you, but I let my ego take over. I want to make amends. I want to rebuild what we had, if you'll let me. Megan studied him, her expression unreadable. Rebuilding trust isn't easy, Henry. You need to understand that this isn't just about business. It's about our marriage, our partnership. You have to prove that you're committed to changing, to being honest and transparent. If you can't do that, then I don't know how we move forward. Henry nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He understood that rebuilding their relationship would take time, effort, and honesty, qualities he had neglected for far too long. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, he said earnestly. I want to support you and this company in the way you deserve. Megan paused, contemplating his words. It's going to take time, Henry. Trust is built slowly and can be shattered in an instant. I need you to understand the gravity of your actions. You've made promises before, this time, they have to mean something. Henry felt a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. I will prove myself to you, I promise, he declared. Let me show you that I can be the partner you deserve. In the days that followed, the journey toward rebuilding their relationship began. Henry took concrete steps to change his behavior, focusing on transparency and honesty in all aspects of his life. He joined Megan in her vision for the company, working alongside her to implement her ideas and strategies. Slowly, they began to forge a new partnership, one built on mutual respect and shared goals. Megan, in turn, watched Henry closely, gauging his commitment and sincerity. She found herself torn between the love she had for him and the pain of betrayal that still lingered. But as they navigated the challenges of the company together, she began to see glimmers of the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had once shared her dreams and aspirations. As the company flourished under their joint leadership, Henry realized that true success was not measured by power or status but by the strength of relationships and the integrity of one's actions. He had learned the hard way that ambition could not overshadow the importance of trust and love. In the end, while the scars of betrayal would remain, both Henry and Megan found a renewed sense of purpose and connection. They understood that every ending held the possibility of a new beginning, and together, they would forge a future that honored their past while embracing the lessons learned. As they stood side by side, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and gold, they knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but it was a journey they were willing to embark on together. Their story became a testament to resilience, reminding them, and those around them, that life's greatest lessons often arise from the ashes of our mistakes. With each passing day, they rebuilt not just their marriage but also a partnership founded on respect, transparency, and a shared vision for the future. And thus, as they stepped forward into the unknown, they did so with renewed hope and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together.